Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser. It is Wednesday, so you know what that means. It's time to be the greatest dad ever. Got the coffee ready to go. Coming in as a close second is Gordo with us this morning. What's happening, man?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I got my second greatest. Oh, you can't even see it. Second greatest dad water there. It's the
One day you'll get coffee too.
consolation prize.
Alan's Dusk, as always, good morning, everyone. I'm going to start the show with a humble brag over here. Because honestly, I saw this image, I think it was like 2 days ago, and now it makes sense as to. Sparky says, morning, being on Easter time is very civilized. Yeah, us peasants, are in the central time over here in Chicago. So anyway, like this makes sense as to why so many people kept sending me this image, and I was like, okay, like we get it, kind of thing. Literally, I think like 6, 7 people on Instagram forwarded me this message, like like friends and stuff like that. This is basically Fenerbahce's 116th year. So that's what the hashtag says over there, that the legend is 116 years old, kind of thing. The coolest part about this, and I didn't notice, right? You look at this image, you're like, oh, and that's cool. It's the 116th year and stuff. You zoom in all the way.
Oh, nice.
And right next to Atatürk over there is my grandfather.
That's awesome.
So I was like, yeah, I did not even notice till my brother's like, he's like, dude, he just texted me this morning on WhatsApp. He's like, dude, did you see my grandfather over there? I was like, holy shit, I did not. But like I say, it makes sense because people who don't normally send me Fenerbahce stuff was sending me stuff all the time. Actually, that's, I think, the same photo, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is the same photo, right? Well, to be fair, it's pretty tricky to find good quality photos from those days. It's not like today where there's like GIFs and clips and all that kind of good stuff. Okay. Speaking of GIFs and clips and all that kind of stuff, let's get to a couple of headlines. You sent me a few things that I do want to definitely get to as well, because I thought they're like good, interesting, like talking points. But let's start with this over here. Let me share this and then we'll go from there. And I want to get your take on this because now Neymar, who everybody, okay, Alan, we don't need hair jokes over here. But yeah, he did have hair. Somebody who has goofy hair, Neymar, and as you can see him rolling over here away from PSG, apparently. So as he rolls away from PSG, the word is, I mean, anybody who follows the podcast knows that he's number one in my most hated player list. I think he's everything that's wrong with the sports. In this, maybe not the sport itself, maybe like a star of a sports. I think the dude is it. So a lot of rumors. I mean, obviously, none of them make sense for Premier League, but of course, Chelsea's name is in there, so it automatically somehow makes sense in a crazy kind of way. Do you think if any team, you would think Chelsea United would be crazy enough to do something like that? Would they be that crazy to bring this to the Premier League?
Sure.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's all an image thing, really, with Chelsea. Look at all the failed strikers that like were good before Chelsea and then good after Chelsea. Lukaku, Torres, Aubameyang, like all these like players they bring in that just completely fail. Yeah, he's a perfect fit. I mean, he'll come in, he'll do absolutely nothing. He won't score that many goals, and then he'll leave with a giant paycheck. It probably suits him too.
I just feel like he will get injured instantly in the Premier League, especially as much. And I don't even know, there are not a lot of players that hold the ball as much in the Premier League. I mean, that's one thing about the league itself. The pace of play is so fast compared to, I mean, you look at that Champions League game yesterday. I mean, you saw it there. There's like a certain level of soccer where the pace is tremendous, and then you watch Major League Soccer or heck Turkish League or something like that, where it feels like, holy cow, this is slow in terms of how fast the ball moves, how fast the game moves, and stuff like that. You think his play would translate in a perfect world? You brought Neymar in. You think he will do well as a player?
Oh, I think he'd probably need some time to adjust, but like he is pretty technical with his feet. It might be, if he puts his ego aside, which I think is his biggest problem, is the ego aspect. But if he puts that in and puts hard work down, he could be somebody that would add a different element that we really don't see in the Premier League of that ticky tacky. I mean, really the only team that does that or can do that on a weekly basis is Manchester City. There isn't like another team that really has that. I mean, Arsenal pass the ball around a lot, but it's not like it's not like the Barcelona style that like Neymar plays. But there's something to be said too about, Messi's failed career at PSG was actually like a masterstroke for him because it allowed him to be rested and actually go and win that tournament so that, he didn't go into a World Cup absolutely exhausted from like a grueling competition. He was able to kind of like breeze his way from autumn into winter for that World Cup and end up winning it. And so sometimes when you play that many years in a league like that, like you just don't have it anymore. Like you've lost that little edge that you used to have because it's not as hard to play week in and week out in France.
Yeah, I mean, because especially you would think most of the people who do go there, I mean, let's face it, it's like it's a step before you go to the Turkish league or Major League Soccer or Saudi Arabia or something like that, where life is easier. And I remember mind you, was when Serie A was at its peak. But like I remember back in the day, Fenerbahce got this dude Garçon, like this midfielder dude from Italy. I think he was playing for Bari at the time, and I remember the dude saying that they're like, how do you do it? Like he's nonstop, like running. Like I remember there was like footage of him after a game, like literally squeezing his jersey and like just sweat comes out and shit.
Right.
And they were like, just how do you do it? And the dude flat out said, well, I mean, to be fair, like the practices in Serie A were harder than the games here in the Turkish league. I mean, yeah, this is back in the day when Serie A was on top and Turkish league was nowhere near where it is now. They didn't have even like quality players, but
Right.
still, I think you kind of like take a step down and life gets easier. As it's almost like when I was playing, Monday nights, went from like this supposedly open for fun league. After a while, I was like, okay, I'm not chasing college kids anymore. So I went to the over 35 league. So it's kind of like the same thing. It's still the same game. Yeah, it's still a challenge, but life got a bit easier. Like, because
Right.
once you get past the guy, he's gone. He's not going to be tracking you down. Whereas in the other one, a college kid will track you down to home to win that ball away. So it's kind of a challenge when you're like getting older. But United's name was thrown in there. I don't know. I felt like Chelsea was a name that's sadly made sense probably for Chelsea fans, but I felt like United's would not take on a trouble like that, having just gone through the Ronaldo experiment, right? Like bring somebody like that to the locker room where they're trying to build a team. And it feels like Newcastle, with all the money they have been smart with that money and they haven't done what Chelsea has done.
Yeah, and Newcastle have Eddie Howe, and I really like him as a manager. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders, and I think he's allowed to kind of have a say in that locker room. Whereas like Chelsea and United, like since Alex Ferguson has left, like they don't have managers that they bring into the fold. I feel like, and United has been like flirting with this image over like the play for 10-15 years now. I mean, like I always joke that like they literally have a tractor sponsor. It's like, why does the Premier League team have a tractor sponsor? It doesn't, the official tractor of Manchester United. Like, why the fuck does a Premier League team need that? But they've brought in, I mean, I can see them bringing in Neymar because Abramovich, Ibrahimovic, they brought in Falcao those years ago. Who's the other failing forward they brought in that didn't end up doing anything?
But do you put Neymar in the see? I put Neymar in a total different category than an aging forward like Igalo. I think was like another one they brought back.
Yeah,
Like, hey, you still playing, dude? Come back, But I feel like I put Neymar in a different category where not only he is, like an aging on the decline forward. I feel he brings a lot of drama that takes away from the team. It's more like a me guy. When you brought Falcao over, I mean, yeah, every striker has an ego. I mean, Ibrahimovic has, the biggest ego of all time. But at the same time, there's production and there's still, what you're getting. I feel like with Neymar, you're more getting not only the player, you're like, okay, this is the player we're getting, but you're also getting some other drama like around. He's coming with like a cloud around them towards your club.
Yeah, and a cloud that also includes people. He has like an entourage, and he is one of those guys that has tried to, like, he reminds me, he's the closest player I think what we have like in the sport to an NBA player, where like the style and like the fashion is as much a part of him as his play, which like you really don't see that. Like basketball, like the NBA, for as fun as it is to watch sometimes, like that is so intertwined with fashion and the shoe deals and all the other.
Why do you think that is? Is that just because it's a pop culture kind of thing? Because I've always said this, you watch, that's one thing I love about soccer, and I just hope it never changes, and I have a bad feeling that it will change in the next 10, 15 years. But, you watch a soccer team come to a game, it's a team coming to a game. Everybody's wearing the same thing. I mean? Like everybody's got the same tracksuit. Everybody's wearing a suit, whatever it is. And it's a team, it's a group of men working together for something. Whereas like NBA, NFL, it's more about what they drove there and what they're wearing there and what they wore to the press conference and stuff like that. Is that just like an American culture thing? Is it a pop culture thing? What is it?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I just think it is like the culture of the players that go through it. And I think it really did start with Jordan. And I don't, obviously this isn't a basketball podcast, but when he branched out and made the deal with Nike, and they made Air Jordans, and he was plastered everywhere. He was selling everything. I think that really revolutionized the game and changed it in a direction that a lot of players decided to jump on board with. I remember the last video game basketball that I bought was like 2K5 or something like that, and the
Jesus.
the career mode came with this extra thing that you had to like use your money to buy things in order for your player to get better. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to play a career mode where like I have to buy shoes so that my player gets more time on the court. Like, so I was like, I'm done with this. And it's like, that's the video game knew that was a part of the culture, so.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more about branding. I mean, Sparky Park is an American thing. I think it's a lot about, like the players want to brand themselves. They want to stick out because that's a lot of money in some ways. I don't know, because it's a lot more players. I really don't know the reasons behind it, but it's a lot about like branding, separating yourself from this group, either with what you wear or what you say or how you act or whatever it might be. So that you are different than everybody else, kind of a deal. Whereas it feels like in soccer overall, and that's why like a character like I think Neymar like sticks out a lot more, where it's more about the team. Like everybody kind of like makes that the brag that it's a team thing. It's a team thing. Nobody wants to stick out and be the one that says, yeah. I mean, you only have so few characters in in a huge world of soccer that would fit in that branding thing.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do too with like the clubs are like intertwined with the cities, and they actually feel like they represent the towns. Whereas like you don't get that same sense with American sports. Like, yes, they're the Chicago Blackhawks, but like I don't feel like that's part of the dressing room speech, like we're going out there for the citizens of Chicago. It's like, we're like that 100% happens.
For the lake.
Yeah, exactly. Where that Jurgen Klopp has said that, like this is for the city of Liverpool. He said that at least once in one of his halftime speeches. So I think that has a lot to do with it too. Is like, instead of representing yourself, you're representing something bigger and collective.
Yeah, that's an interesting chat. Actually, we can probably do this for hours. Actually, but yeah, I think that's I find it odd, and it's something that I really, really like watching, regardless of who it is, what team it is. You watch that Inside Anfield things. I mean, same thing with Fenerbahce. Like, there's the thing about a team unity. A team is coming to the stadium to play as a team against another team, and I kind of like that but then again, I'm old. American sportsmen own their own contracts, so commercial is bigger. Clubs own contracts in soccer. That's a good point too. I think, like I say, it's a lot about money, and because your brand is the money, and you kind of like control it by what you do. If you just become a normal, I don't know, bland dude, I guess, your value is not going to be as high. So you got to stick out because you wear weird hats, or, your shirts are always bright green or something, whatever it is. So, I mean, it doesn't even matter what it is. Saidu says, looking at Neymar's style of play is never astonishing compared to the phenomenal Ronaldinho. I think a couple of things. Holy shit. I mean, I can make a whole podcast about things I hate about Neymar. But I think the top of the list, aside from, the rolling around and exaggerating, because I feel like those fouls, you kind of are asking for it by holding the ball that long, for one, and two, he goes out of his way to show off players. I think it was Sparky earlier saying, like, wish he, soon as Raheem was still playing and they would break him in a week. Because if you do that, you are going to get payback. You do not show off a professional, because I feel like he does it on purpose. It's not even like, I don't know, you watch certain players, even like Bobby sometimes does it, but overall, like even Brazilian players that have the flair, they do stuff. And that's why growing up, I loved watching the Brazilian national team, because they don't even know what they're doing. Like, it just comes natural to them. Like, to the European fan, that was like, when you watch South American teams, I mean, Gordo, you're younger than me, but you can probably relate. Is like when there were not as many South American players playing in Europe, when you watch the World Cup and you watch Brazil and Argentina, like they would just bring a ball down, like so smooth, like Roberto Carlos or somebody like that would just bring a ball down. They're not doing it to show off. That's how they roll. Like that's what their touch is. And at the time it was like, oh my God, like look at that touch. And they did it not to show off. That's how they played. I feel like Neymar does it where he wants to show you off. He wants to make you look bad. He can go past you a different way or move the ball, but no, let's see if I can flick it over him and stuff like that. And I think that's what I don't like about him.
That's 100%. Yeah, he definitely moves to try and humiliate a player by keep holding on to the ball longer, and that shows me that it is, or he thinks at least, it is all about him instead of the team effort of moving forward.
Yeah, that's what Saidu says, and I don't think that would kind of like fly in the world of Premier League. I just don't see it, but hey, you never know. Okay, let's get to a couple of the things that you sent me, because I thought these were actually pretty darn good. So this made me chuckle right here. Good old Big Sam. So that's Sam's stats there. So here's my thing. I don't think anybody would say, I think we all know what his expertise is. This is his expertise at best. And actually, like say, when we compared the numbers last week on Wednesday, I thought he had done it a lot more on a lot of different teams in terms of his specialty of coming in to scrape some points at the end and stuff. Why would he go out of his way to say, compare himself to Pep and Klopp and stuff like that, and then love how Leeds says, yeah, see, here is the proof. The guy's a winner.
Right before the game, right? Yeah, like it's just like, did anyone check this, like, and do the math that it's literally not a good win rate.
I think somebody like, look at those high numbers, but they didn't read what it stands for underneath.
100%, yeah.
So why do you think he would go out of his way to even, I mean, obviously they're going to ask him these questions, but he could have been like, hey, I have my own thing, they have their own thing, and move on. Like, he made a point of like this old crabby get off my lawn character, saying like, I know more about soccer than Pep forgot. I've forgotten more about soccer than Pep will ever know, kind of a thing. Like, why even do that?
Maybe that's to gee up the players. Maybe that's is to show that, this manager's not going to roll over for Pep and Klopp. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. And maybe that was literally just for his players and fan base, maybe just to rile them up. Because then after the game in his post-match conference, he's like, well, your players win you trophies. Like, in referring to Pep, he's like, yeah, it'd be really easy if I had that team. I'd be really Are you better than him or not? I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
and okay, that's fair, right? That's fair, and I understand what he's saying. Like he's not, and he didn't even say it like I don't know. I think he's trying to say like been there, done that. Like maybe he has been in. He. I mean, like Pep doesn't know a relegation battle, for example. Sam does. Maybe that's what he means. Like I know more than them, kind of thing. Like he doesn't know what it means to be 17th, kind of a thing. But I just don't understand why you would go out of his way to say that. Because yes, it is the players, but then you do need a manager somewhere. I think. Okay, let me ask you, what is the percentage you think? If it's like a quotient of some kind, or like a multiplier, what does the manager bring to a squad? If your squad is 1, does it make it 1.1, 1.2, 0.9, 0.8? Give me a number.
Man, I want to say like 70% team, 30% manager.
Oh, that's pretty high actually still.
Because, like I still think that a good team can get it. Like I still think like if you put like I don't know, like Frank Lampard with Man City, like he'd still probably end up in Champions League spots, he's probably not winning the league, but he's probably still, collecting 75, 80 points in a season with that team. So
okay, let me ask you this though. That's more because I feel he would be taking over a team that somebody built. He would destroy that shit in 3 seasons.
Yeah,
but he would be taking over something where you and I can probably walk in. I mean, we'd probably still make Champions League because you can be like, so what was Pep saying? Yep, do that, and then you're like, I'll be on the sideline if you guys need me, and then go out there, and you would think, Kevin, make sure you crossed it in. Holland, finish. See you guys later. I mean, they would get some points one way or the other, but you would think in 3 years or so, give Lampard some time, he can even destroy the City team that Pep built.
That is true. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe it is further.
Right, let's take it normal. Let's take, for example, Fulham, right? Like a middle of the road team. Like you put Lampard there, I think they're fighting for relegation.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I guess in that sense, then it'd probably be closer to 50-50 then.
Yeah, I think it's odd because if you look at a game basis, I think it's totally different. Like, given the squad, like if I give you the City squads, I mean, Pep is probably going to get more out of it than you and I would in terms of percentage or fucking you. We can probably put Lampard in the same thing as us, you and me and Lampard. But I think, in terms of building that squad, yeah, I think the 70-30 probably makes sense. They were like, like a 60-40, something like that. Because I mean, like Klopp, I mean, not a lot of people can do the same thing. I think it's like making that team is probably the biggest challenge. But on a given day, let's say given the same squads, what percentage are you giving them? Are you still giving them 30 in terms of tactics, how much of an impact they can make on a cup final or something like that?
Yeah, like it's probably closer to 40 or 50. You're probably right. Because you can take a good team and just crap tactics and end up losing and, so... And that's hard because, the Premier League is it's so difficult to play in. And so, like, you don't really have any free days where you can just decide, like, players can choose for themselves and, you can go around and ask them, what was their goal for what position they wanted to play when they were a kid and then switch them around, Did you ever want to play goalie, Erling Haaland? It's your chance.
Today is your day, kid.
Yeah. Ultimate embarrassment. But like,
it's rather obvious that some successful players ended up being unsuccessful managers or coaches. Fate never lies. I think that's partially because, I mean, like, I don't know, in like a business world, a great full-time employee does not make a good manager. Like I've had so many times where you have somebody who's a great full-time employee, can follow direction, will put their 100% in and stuff, but they just cannot manage because it's a totally different skill set.
Yeah, that is also true, and because I think they see it from a different point of view, and I think they try and relate too hard to players, especially like really early in their careers. Like obviously we're seeing Frank Lampard, and then when you look at Villa after Steve left, it's like, oh, maybe he was a very bad manager. Like, it's maybe they're too close to their playing careers and they're still relating more with players instead of the manager aspect of it. And because that is something you do see like in the business world too. When someone gets promoted, they still want to be like everyone's friend, and they're more still trying to appease the workers instead of doing what's needed, which sometimes is a difficult conversation to have.
And I think in like pro sports, especially, I mean, some things for a great player, I always feel like some of these guys that were like average players or somebody like Klopp can understand like improving people, whereas the dude like Gerrard or Lampard or whatever, I mean, due to their skill sets or work ethic, I mean, you just don't want to be like jeans or whatever. I mean, they put a lot of work into being the player they are, but some things you just can't teach, like, field vision and stuff like that, or leadership skills and stuff you cannot teach. And I think it can get frustrating when you're dealing with players. It came so easy to you because it was part of like who you were, and you can't just pass it on. It's very frustrating. You're like, how do you not fucking see that? Well,
yeah, right.
See that I be Gerrard, dude. Like, that's why that's why you got to show me how to see that. And I think that's kind of like a lot of the frustration that you see. I've heard like Jordan talk about this, that he would just go nuts. And I think that's like same reason for like Kobe and stuff like that, because you kind of expect the same level of commitment to excellence from players that you put in, and when you don't get that, it's probably frustrating as fuck.
Yeah, you definitely like lose your mind doing that.
Oh yeah, you were talking about the Premier League earlier, and like how hard it is and stuff like that. So Southampton.
I love that. This is fantastic.
Yeah, so Southampton were told at the start of the season they win matches against 3 different Chelsea managers and see City's quadruple hopes, draw twice versus the league leaders, concede just once versus United, and contest time at Spurs, and then pretty much almost guaranteed for relegation. I mean, that just shows that anything can happen in the Premier League, and I think that's what makes the league great.
Yeah, and I was talking about this last night with Kelly. I sat there and I was like, I want to go back in time to the beginning of the season and just tell us those stats. Obviously not the last sentence, but tell us those stats and then guess where Southampton finishes on the table. And I'd say definitely top half, probably 6th or 7th. Like that seems like a great season. And then what would be even funnier is if you were a Southampton fan, either a nice boring season in 17th or 8th or excuse me, not 17th, but like 15th or 12th, or these few things. Like, what do you want? And I bet you all the Southampton fans would choose the other one. It's like, well, that also comes with relegation, so congratulations. It's like that is so difficult. Like that just shows how difficult the Premier League is. It's unbelievable to read that and then to see where Southampton are.
And I think, but that's what probably makes the league more interesting, because a team that can pull off. But I mean, does that also say something about Southampton that they get up? I mean, is it because Southampton perhaps put more into those games against the big boys, or is it just that any team can do anything on a given day, but in the grand scheme, like the marathon, they're still gonna fall behind if don't have the quality? So do you put it on Southampton? Or do you like give credit to the league? Definitely. Or do you punish Southampton?
It has, well, again, here's just me doing the political dance, but it has to be both because, like you said, because you have to have the teams that like don't care where they are on the table, to win or to tie and to beat you. But then you also have to give like that real flimsy core of Southampton the fault of like not getting up for that Leeds game, or not getting up and going after the Palace game, or whatever it may be, teams that they felt like they were close to in terms of where they'd be at the end of the season. And that's something like, it sucks to say this because most of the seasons under Klopp, if City weren't cheating and didn't have Pep and spend all that money, we probably would have lots of Premier League victories. But I always felt like it was those games against the Villas and the West Hams and stuff that like cost us the season, because we just weren't up. Like we did our business against the Big Six, and we just couldn't get it done on a Monday afternoon against Palace or something like that. So I always felt that was sometimes our weak point too. But it's tough to say that because when you look at the points, although we finished second, history is always going to remember second. You have to look at the point totals. I mean, the top 10 point totals for Premier League history, I think like we have 4 of them or whatever, and we've and 3 of those we finished second place. This is like, that's crazy to think about, but you do have to get up for all the games, and that is the Premier League. That's down to the Premier League. So it's mentality and the league that you're in.
Yeah, I'll give you credit on this one. This is probably like an all of the above for me too, because I think it does go both ways. And I mean, part of it is, yeah, I mean, not only getting up for those games, but you look at your squad depth. Like, maybe during these games, Southampton was all healthy, and when a couple of the key players were not available, they just don't have the depth as other teams do, so they lose points. They're at the bottom of the league. Or, yeah, you could say that, those games, they had more of a focus because there was more attention to the game. It's kind of like sad to think that, probably as a Southampton fan. But I agree with you. Like, how many times have we said that about our very own team? I mean, this has been like a kind of like a trend. Even this season, like some of the stupid points we've lost to Leeds and Forest and stuff like that. I remember right before the freaking World Cup break. I mean, you don't lose those stupid points. We're not even, top 4 is not even a conversation right now. We're not having a segment on are we going to make top 4.
Right.
You're already in there. You're probably where, United and Newcastle were. You're above them right now easily. So if anything, they're trying to catch you. So yeah, I mean, we've done the same thing, and I don't know if that's like kind of like a lack of focus, or I mean, in our case, sometimes I think it is having trouble playing against teams that sit back and things like that. I don't think Southampton has that issue, or maybe they do. Maybe they want somebody to really come at them so they can counter on them. So maybe that suits their play too. But so let's do some. I hate overall diving into this, but I saw this one, so I want to get your take on this. Get another all of the above answer over here. West Ham wants Jude Bellingham money, which is like a new new amounts in math now. For Declan Rice. And on the side, you see the other headline with Ugarte, which will make Megan, who has been scouting Ugarte for a year and a half now, and now everybody's on that boat. But let's talk about Declan Rice over here. How the hell would West Ham think that, or is that just like a negotiation ploy, or just to keep people away?
Yeah, it's a negotiation ploy. It's like the worst. It's like when you first learn about bargaining, you're like, I'll take $100. It's like, if it starts at 100, then maybe we might get 50, So I really think it's like that. It's like they really have had 2 miserable seasons, and
Southampton will win the championship for one season. That honestly really depends. When these teams go down, it really depends on who they lose more. Like if you can get Prowse and stuff like that out of them, that'd be a different story who they have left. But going back to Declan Rice, okay, so how much would you give for Rice?
Oh man, I don't even think he's like the best in his position in the league too. So I probably would put him. The transfer market's so skewed. Probably like 35, 40. I don't really rate him that highly. I think he's a good player. He's a solid player, but I don't think he's the best in his position. He's English, which that sometimes helps because
I was going to say, yeah. What even was Declan Rico? Like how much would you give him?
Well, no, because I'm talking about with the domestic rules they have now.
Yeah.
Obviously, sometimes teams will look at that, and you have to focus now on who exits because you have to maintain that split between the teams. So maybe that's what they look at who's leaving Liverpool and go, hey, actually they do need an English player, so let's really make them pay.
We have both Ox and Milner possibly leaving, and that's
right.
True right there.
Right. And so teams know that stuff, so they might, put an extra little emphasis on the player. But I really 35, 40. I wouldn't pay more than 50 for him.
Man, that's low. You're not getting him for that. I mean, I hear you. No. In terms of Alan says no more than 50. Sadi says English players are overrated. I think it goes back to the rules of, I mean, every domestic league has this, and I know why they do it. But every domestic league has this. I mean, there's some Turkish players getting ridiculous money because you have to have so many on the field and stuff like that too. Man, 40 is. I mean, probably valuation wise, I'm with you. I just know that that's not gonna get him, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
would you give 60 for him?
Oh man, I'd have to see it. It would all depend on who else we were in the market for. I wouldn't want to waste money that we'd use for somebody like McAllister or something like that. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
we can get Rice, but then we'd have to give up someone else because I don't think he's somebody I'd be okay with. Like, you know, if it comes out in December of next year that like we were really close to signing McAllister, but didn't have the money because we bought Declan Rice. This is like, that's not a good move. So I
Yeah.
would if we just like gave Jurgen Klopp a blank check and they just were like spend on whoever you want, sure, I'll take him for 80. But if that's going to cost us getting somebody else, then I would not take 80.
And you would think it would, right? I mean, that's the thing, though. You do have to get somebody English one way or the other. So I don't know. I can't think of a lot of players that I'd be like Proust. That's why James Proust comes to mind, especially if he has like a good clause for getting relegated or something like that to be able to snatch stuff. But so Southampton has a couple of players we can probably steal that would fit that bill. But I can't think of a lot of players that I'd be like, yep, that'd be a good signing for us and
Right.
keep us in that number ratio. You're going to end up basically either promoting some of your young guys to meet those numbers, or you have to eventually get somebody. I feel like he's a younger and slightly better version of Hendo. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. He's definitely like, you know, probably what Hendo was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, not only could I don't think he's got the leadership presence. Like Jordan Henderson that's the one thing I think that's kept him in the game so long, really, because I think he is like a very average player. However, like he has that quality that you just don't see in many people. It's just that
Yeah.
the ability to take 11 guys and drag them through 90 minutes, you know, on nothing but willpower. So I think that's something that you definitely lose with Henderson. But yeah, play wise, I can see that.
Yes,
Is
and
it
that's why I hope he sticks six around still and gives
same?
that leadership, and then comes in to close out a game, the last 20 minutes and stuff like that, and gives you the Henderson that you really want to see out there. Because
Mhm.
Henderson that's at 80%, 70% capacity is not fun to watch. But when it's 100% and giving that speed and run and work rates, that's when you really want him. So on the way out, let's get a prediction from you for today's game, where we might see a Divock sighting because Leao is out, from what I understand. So
Mhm.
Alan says, I'm surprised no one mentions, because I don't think Barcelona is letting him go, and I don't think he's leaving Barcelona. That's kind of like a dangling carrot there. That's why I'm not even dreaming of that one, because I feel like, when they're over there, unless they're not wanted there, I don't think you're getting to the Premier League. If they're in Barcelona or Real, unless Real and Barcelona has decided that they don't want them, I don't think you're getting them back in the Premier League. Those two teams, they have like a different kind of attraction, I think, to players that we cannot duplicate at Premier League. So I would love to, but I'm not setting myself up to fail. So Divock today, possibly starting for AC Milan. Milan, which really feels ugly, but should be interesting and probably a fun game to watch, especially in terms of drama. Milan versus Milan. Who do you have?
Um, who do I
Divock
want or
Barca
who I think?
Champions League semifinal.
I'd want AC Milan just because like there is that, you know, there is that history with Liverpool. I love them as a team when I was growing up. Like that 2000, although they lost to us in 2005, that's literally maybe one of the greatest teams ever
Yeah.
assembled in terms of, and that to me, like I was really like I was following the sport at that point, but that age of 2005 was like the first year that I really kind of got it. You know, I was understanding, you know, picking up players, getting the different leagues and understanding stuff. And so that team like still sits like the Harlem Globetrotters in my head, like of my childhood. So I'd want them to go through, but I think Inter is probably the team that's got it this year. They just are, they seem to me as a better team
Yeah.
in terms of like the way they play together. And AC Milan definitely had a difficult start to the season too.
Yeah, I agree to that. I think Inter is more of a team. Milan relies on a couple of like performances, but hey, who better to give you a semifinal performance than Divac, I guess. But yeah, because I grew up watching that like Juventus team. I mean, Jesus, I can still remember. I can give you probably starting 11 over here, like with Platini, Rossi, like Boniek, and stuff like that. Just like an amazing team to watch,
Mhm.
soft and goal and stuff like that. But then afterwards, that AC Milan team came. Yeah, the one you're talking about. That's why I thought that Istanbul thing was even bigger because it was that team you came back
Yeah.
against. It was just like not like a team. It was that team that you came back. I mean, you look at those starting 11s, you're like, how the fuck did that happen? I mean,
No, some absolute like international legends. It was the Harlem Globetrotters of world football at that point.
so
And it's Carlo Ancelotti was the coach, so you've got like one of the greatest coaches of all
no
time
shit.
and the team.
Damn, that dude
So
has been around for a while.
yeah. What a team.
So score prediction for today?
I think it's gonna be low. You know, it's like basically a home game for both of them. So it's probably I'm like 1-0, 2-1.
2. This is like this was the ultimate double-sided answer of the day. I'll just give you a score. You can flip flop.
We'll go 2-1. Let's say 2-1. Make it exciting for everyone.
Yeah, it should be interesting one to tune in. Hakan is playing for Inter Milan. I don't know how the hell that happens. That's a different story. It's a totally different dude that on the one on the national team. I can definitely tell you that. But yeah, should be a fun one. Milan 1, Inter 0, says Saidu. I just hope, yeah, it's a fun game to watch. I can see a lot of drama on this one, but at the same time, yeah, 1-0 and stuff kind of makes sense because I'm assuming both of them are gonna play it safe because, like you say, it's just basically 2 home games. But I think that kind of makes it interesting. Makes it a little dirty watching those guys, but still at the same time makes it interesting. Well, happy hump day to all. Enjoy the rest of the week. The boys will be back tomorrow night. Hopefully, Mecca will be able to get like the technology thing sorted out. He'll be live, followed by the fantasy nerds to give you some last minute tips as they head. I assume to the end of the season over here. My season ended like 3-4 months ago, that's why Cancelo is still starting for me. But have a great day. Thanks a lot, Gordo. Thanks a
Thanks.
lot, everybody. Give it a share, a like, tell a friend, and we'll see you guys on Friday. Take care.